Okay, let's see what we got here. Give me a second, waiting for a few people to get in here, and then also um, checking sound as well. So if you're tuning in and you can hear me, if you can give me a one. Okay, yeah, if you can hear me, give me a one in the chat. There we go. Thanks a lot, Brian. Okay, bear with me. I'm getting some things queued up. As you, if you looked at the event, I'm running late here, as I've said a few times on this. A lot of times I'm coming straight from work. Not to mention technical difficulties from time to time. So um, thank you guys for bearing with me here. So queuing up the scriptures here. Um, those of you guys that have followed along, this is going to be um, week three of this series approved, and so the the text that this is following is going to be, I believe it's Genesis 12 up through. Yeah, I'm having to look at myself. Genesis 29. So Genesis 12 through Genesis 29. So, um, thank you, Kelly. So give me a second. I'm queuing up some screens here, so bear with me, guys. And also letting a few other people get in. So, okay. That's what I was looking for. So cue that up to Genesis 12. Okay. So I'll go ahead and get started. So again, yeah, this is week three of the series approved. And last week we literally went through the entire book of Job. Um, in reality, some of Job bled into this week, or would have bled into this week, had I just taken it straight to the plan. But I kind of mentioned I covered some of Job last week, or I covered a day into this weekend, to be honest, a day into the previous week, just so that, I mean, last week we can just cover the entire book. It was a little bit simpler, or a little bit more simple to just digest it that way, as opposed to covering part of Job one week, part of Job the next week, and other subjects and so on and so forth. So if you're on my YouTube channel, I've kind of outlined that out, tried to make it clear kind of what I was doing. So if you are following along with the plan, this week normally would have started at day 15, but what we're going to be discussing is really going to be starting at day 16, simply because of that reason, because day 15 was Job, and I covered all of that last week. So really we're going to be starting at day 16, which is starting at Genesis 12, and the end of day 21, which would really be today's reading. It would be Genesis 29. And so that's what we're going to be covering today. So that being said, so yeah, this is week three of an existing plan. If you're just hopping in now, this is your first time listening. That's not a problem. It's like, hey, the word is the word. But this is a part of a longer. It's part three of a larger plan, going through a year of literally breaking down the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. So, and that's where we're at. So if you're coming here in the middle, that's totally okay. And the very first kind of the introduction, I kind of go over I kind of go over the kind of the format of what we're using, the tools, which is called U version, and all of that. If you are coming in here, that's great. But my YouTube channel has all of that. So all four of the videos, it's in the playlist called Approved. And so week one, or the first video is actually the introduction where I talk about what's going on, and then we go through the weeks from there. So again, we're week three of this plan, and yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So that being said, this week really um, starts the lineage of Abraham. So we've already gone through from Adam to Noah. We've gone through Job in the timeline, and now we're at Abraham. And starts getting pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and take it out. So let's start in Genesis 12. I'll go ahead and bring this up on my screen. And give me a second. And we're going to go ahead and bring up our Blue Letter Bible page so that you guys can kind of follow along as I'm talking. Um, so and um, so here we are. Now Yahuwah had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and flee from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. So you've heard of the blessings of Abraham. So what you may or may not have, but if you have, this is kind of the beginnings of that. This is a promise that the Most High actually made to, at this point, and he's just Abram. And so at this point, you'll actually see, and if you've read it, you kind of get it. You'll hear this theme that's actually going throughout his life. The Most High promises him here, but continues to confirm his promise to Abram throughout this. And so now, one thing that I really enjoy about the story of Abram is you really get to see his growth. And so you look at in this chapter, verse 6, he says, actually, let me see. Yeah, here we go. So verse 6 in the same chapter, and Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite then was in the land. And Yahuwah appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto Yahuwah who appeared unto him. So again, he's reiterating it. Here he is. He says, and verse 9, and Abram journeyed going on still to the south. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there. And the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was near into Egypt, he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that there art a fair woman to look upon. So this fair, let's look up at this word fair, because there's in the English language, there's a few different definitions for fair. So let's see what this says. Fair, beautiful, handsome. Okay, so inevitably what he's saying is he's saying, baby, you fine. That's what he's saying when he says you are a fair woman. He's saying you look good. And if you think of it in the American context, fair has a few different connotations to it. It can mean, of course, fair as in, treating everyone equal, or fair as in, to be honest, uh, fair is also looked upon as, a lighter skin. And That's not what this is saying. It's just literally just saying beautiful. And so, so when he says fair, that's what he's saying. He says you are a fair woman to look upon. He's saying you are a beautiful woman to look upon. You beautiful. And so, so that being said, it kind of leads into the next part. It says, "Therefore shall it come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but will save thee alive." So basically, they're saying they're gonna kill me to get to you, because I mean, you fine, and they gonna want you for themselves. And so basically, tell them you my sister, just to save me. So here, in verse 13, it says, "Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with thee for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee." And so, and basically what happens is, you look further, it says, "The princes of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house." So, exactly as he thought, they saw her, they saw she was beautiful, so beautiful to the point that they got Pharaoh's like, "Hey, you need to check out this lady." And what ended up happening is Yahuwah plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And so basically, um, she goes in there, and inevitably they are suffering just the fact that she's in there. Because of who she was, and and more of who she was, because Abram and Sarah had favor upon the Most High. Um, so that being said, and Pharaoh called to Abraham, "What is this thou hast done to me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why didst thou say, or why saidst thou, she is my sister, so that I might have taken her to me to wife? Now, therefore, behold thy wife, take her and get out of here, or go thy way," as it says. And um, and he sent him away with all that he had. Now, here, um, oh, sorry, you know what? I skipped a very important verse that also gave a little more context to what's coming up in this next chapter. I did skip it. He says, uh, verse 16. Sorry, "And he entreated Abram well for her sake, and he had given." Uh, and he had sheep and oxen and asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and camels. Okay, and so now, so the Pharaoh had given this to Abram. He's like, "Hey, your sister's fine. We're gonna give you all of this stuff for your sister." And so, that's one piece I wanted to catch. And so now, when it says Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him that they sent him away with his wife and all he had. So in everything that Pharaoh gave him, he's like, just go, take it all. So, that being said, you go to the very next chapter, and Abram went out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. Now, now you look at this, it says, "And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold." So, that's one piece that, as I was reading, again, this, each time you read, you tend to catch something new. And that was something that, uh, you know, that I kind of caught new this time. It's like Abram was a rich dude. And so this is something that, you see that happened, to be honest, partially as a result of him leaving Egypt. He was given a lot of that cattle, in that situation. So, but one piece as well is, the fear that kind of he went in there as well with. So now, um, now, this next chapter gets into Lot. So Lot is actually Abram's, um, nephew. So Lot, Abram's nephew. when Lot's father died, Abram basically took him in. So as Abram is traveling and going about, Lot is with him in this entire time. But in chapter 13, what starts to happen is Lot's people and Abram's people basically they kind of ran out of space. There was a bunch of them, and they started to quarrel. They were getting a little. They were tired of each other, and they started to. Um, there was strife, and so you see in verse 8, and Abram said a lot. Let there not be strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, and for we be brethren. Um, and here's what he says: is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I'll take the right. Thou depart to the right, then I will go to the left. So basically, it's saying it's like you got your choice. It's like you can go to the left or you can go to the right, and where you go, I'll go the other way. You get to choose. You get to choose which one you want. And so inevitably, Lot chose which one was looked the best. Lot chose the best of the land, and which happened. What happened to be the best of the land was Sodom and Gomorrah. And it says actually in verse 10, it says, and Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld the plain of the Jordan. It was well watered everywhere before Yahuwah had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So again, this is pre the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which it'll touch on in later chapters. But at this point, there's a reason why people were in Sodom and Gomorrah, because it was a beautiful land. And so for that reason, everybody wanted to be there. And at this point, so did Lot. And so, but here's what happened. It says in verse 13, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before Yahuwah exceedingly. So everything that glitters ain't gold. In this case, the grass was greener on the other side, but it wasn't the best thing. And so, but look what happens though. And Yahuwah said unto Abram after Lot was separated. This is after Lot left. Lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where there art, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. So look in every direction, and everything you see, I'm going to give it to you. And not only am I going to give it to you, I'm going to give it to your seed. I'm going to give it to your children, and forever. And so, but again, what does he also do? He again confirms his promise that he's already said twice in the previous chapter. And as we talk about the previous chapters, one thing I do want to reiterate, or if this is your first time hearing it, the this book was not written in chapters and verses. The Bible was not written in chapters and verses. This was written as a single piece of thought by each of the authors. And so the chapters and verses kind of help us, especially like in this case, we're trying to follow along, and so that we can easier get to a certain portion. But this is also more of the reason to read it in its entirety, because you also you get the fullness of the context, and you also don't miss out on the fullness of the thought. And so that piece I want to come up. Also, like Kelly said, yes, this is the third confirmation of what this is I guess the second confirmation, but the third time of him saying it, of this promise. And to be honest, it's not going to be the last. You can as you read on, you'll continue to see this, and hopefully you have read this. Again, if not, hope what I talk about really more is going to be summary, meant to be paired with reading. So hopefully, this is something, this whole study is really to encourage you to read for yourselves as well. So, but that being said, also, again, if you are just coming in on this video, this is a part of a series, so you can actually go to my channel and actually see the previous videos going through that. But coming back to the study, so he again confirms his promise. So and where he was in the plain of Mamre, so which is Hebron. Okay, so understand um, also the context of Hebron. Okay, um, and why is that important? Well, when after Noah, and even up to this point and further on, but when the children of Noah and his grandchildren and so on and so forth, as they went into different lands and as they claimed lands, they would actually name it for their people, for their sons, their grandsons, and actually sometimes for their own names. And so Hebron was actually named after someone specifically, and it was actually um, Abram's, or excuse me, one of Noah's descendants, and Eber. Um, and so, ergo, where you actually get the word Hebrew, um, or the correct one name for it is actually Ivri, but that's actually where that comes from. So that Hebron is also where you get Hebrew, or Heber, or Eber is where you get the word or the term Hebrew, is one of the descendants of Noah and actually one of the ancestors of Abram. And so so that's where that actually comes from, and also additional context to that. So yeah. So as we go to the next chapter, I'm going to get into some of my notes as well. Chapter 14, some things that I wanted to hit in. Um, oh, so chapter 14 is where they went after Lot. So basically, um, these kings actually went out after some of the other kings. So here it is. I'm just going to read it. The king of as it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and the title kings of the nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with the king of Gomorrah, Shinab, the king of Admah, and Shabima, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. So remember that when Noah and Lot separated, that Lot went towards what was Sodom and Gomorrah. That was the land that Lot took. So inevitably he was dwelling in the land, and what ended up happening as you look down, you see these kings rebelled, and inevitably, um, they were under the authority of these kings right here, and so at this point they rebelled, and they're like, you know what, we done with y'all, and those kings were strong. They're like, no, you ain't. And they came and actually conquered the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, and Bela. And so they actually came back and conquered those lands. Well, sure enough, Lot was in that land as well. And what ends up happening is, part of what they did is they ended up, um, taking, or they killed the men. The men fled, and they took the people, and so ergo Lot was carried off. So and as you see in verse 12, and they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and all his goods, and departed. So um, one of Lot's people came and told Abram about this, and we know about Abram and his faith, and we know about Abram and his um, all of the cool qualities. But did you know Abram was a thug? Because what happens next um, shows another piece of Abram, and actually one of the cool things that you like, if you actually read his word, another piece that you'll actually see becomes a theme as the chosen people of the Yasharel, and Yah's people. They weren't no punks. Let's say that they were not no punks, and so you'll actually see this right here. Um, Verse 14. When Abram heard his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against them and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods and women, and the women also, and the people. And so, yeah, he went and fought. Now, one of the things, and it doesn't actually talk much about the battle in this case, but one of the common pieces that you actually tend to see is their faith in the Most High, and that's one of the things in the battles, and you'll see later on as it goes on, is when it talks about the battles, and when it talks about um, what how they actually go about, what you'll hear is a theme, and the spirit of Yah came upon this person, and the spirit of Yah came upon this person, and inevitably anybody that is one of Yah's chosen people, um, when they're, excuse me, in obedience, and when they're in His will, Yah fights their battles, and they just about all, well, whenever He's fighting for them, it's no competition, and you'll see that. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. So, but what ends up happening is, so now Abram inevitably went and wiped these dudes out, and now so all these kings come back to Abram, and he's like, hey, yo, Abram, hey, thank you for handling these cats for us, and so all that stuff you took back, uh, can we have it back? and so yeah, and so that's what um that's inevitably what happened is, but one piece right here is you'll hear about Melchizedek, king of Salem, actually brought forth bread and wine. And look at this, it says, and he was the priest of the Most High Yah. He was the priest of the Most High. So Melchizedek was a priest. This is before the Levites. This is before um, Moses. This is before all of them. And so that's something that as you read on becomes a lot more important. And also, uh, it was something that was pretty cool to me, is understanding is like the first time that you hear, or definitely one of the first times you hear about a priest of the Most High Yah, is this Melchizedek in the Bible. So and so and so um, now when it came down to um, the king of Sodom, he said, "Give me the people and take the goods for thyself." And here's what he said: "It's like for the king of Sodom, although he took from Melchizedek, he said when it came down to the king of Sodom, he says, um, Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto Yahuwah, the Most High Elohiym, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread, even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich." So that's a piece of it that I want to take note of. His discernment. He took from Melchizedek, but as to Sodom, he said no. He's like, I don't want to take anything from you. So so that being said, so you go into now chapter 15. Now chapter 15, um, Abram was getting old. his wife Sarah um, was childless. Um, so his wife Sarah had not had had not had any children. She was barren, and in those days, um, that was for a woman to not be a child. That was they were really looked down upon, and to be honest, it was also understood the value of having children. Your children were a part of your riches. If you had children, you were highly blessed. You were highly looked upon, highly sought after. And you actually see in last week's lesson when it talked about Job, part of his riches, one of the things that made him great wealth was the amount of children that he had. And so that's one piece to understand about the culture of the people of the Bible. So you had a lot of children, you were rich. So me personally, these days people look at me with my 4 kids and it's like, man, boy, you you tripping, you got all these kids. But on biblical standards, I'm a rich dude. So let's start with that. But that being said, let's um let's get into um going back to this promise. Okay, again, Sarah is barren. She has not had any children, but going back to previous chapters, the Most High had had promised him in multiple occasions that his children will not be, or that he'll have all of these children and will not be numbered. Okay, and so um, now another piece. Let's get into verse 13. Here's something that I want to take note of. He says, and he said unto Abram, know that of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. So that is something to take note of. And in later videos, I'm actually going to touch, or well, we're going to touch upon that because it's actually going to prove relevant. Okay. Um, oh, also as Kelly said, yes, no glory unto the unrighteous, or unto to given to the unrighteous. Yeah, Abram knew who Sodom and Gomorrah were. They were wicked. He's like, yeah, I'm not taking anything from you. So that's a very important piece. So, but verse 14 it says um, also that excuse me, and also that nation whom they shall serve, I will judge, and afterwards they shall come out with great substance. And so also another piece to take note of. Again, that's something I do want you to put in your pockets for later weeks. Um, so um, so looking at chapter 15 now, we chapter excuse me 16. So going back to the faith piece. So now again, she was bare, she had no children. But what she did have, you remember that when he left Egypt, he was because of on Sarah's behalf, they were given treasures. Part of that treasure was, in this case, slaves. So her handmaid was actually, and you'll see right here, it says in verse 1, she had a handmaid who was an Egyptian. Her name was Hagar. And so basically Sarah's like, hey, you know what? He made you this promise. Well, I'm old. It obviously ain't coming from me. So here's what we're gonna do. Abram, go and take my handmaid, take her unto your wife, and go ahead and have your descendants through her. And inevitably that's what happened. And so Abram like, okay, okay, boy, if you said it, I'm gonna go and do it. So a piece of context, Abram would have been, I think it says further down, I believe he would have been about 86 at this point. Or excuse me, about 80, I believe 84, something along those lines. But Adam, he would have been 84. Sarah would have been about 74, if I remember right, as well. And so, if you read the chapters, you'll see the numbers. But that being said, like when I say she's old, she's old. A 74-year-old lady, she's like, hey, I'm not having any kids, but he made you this promise. So go and take my handmaid, and go ahead and bear a child with her. And so Abram, following the instructions of his wife, he does that. Well, it didn't take long, um, for Sarah to, or Sarai at this time, to um, despise it. And you see in verse 5, it says, and Sarah said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. And Yahuwah, she said, uh, I was despised in her eyes. Yahuwah judged between me and thee. And basically, Abraham said, he's like, hey, you know what? Hey, your maid is in your hands. Do what you want to her. Well, she sent her out, or well, she basically was rough with Hagar, and she ran off. And an angel found Hagar in the desert and basically said, "It's like, hey, you Abram's peoples, you gonna be all right. Go ahead and go back to Sarah. Go ahead and submit yourself to her, and I got you." And basically also said, you're with child. You're going to bear a son. You should call his name Ishmael, um, because Yahuwah has heard your affliction. And this is where Ishmael comes from. So the very next, and in the next chapter, it shows at this point, or actually further on down the chapter, Ishmael's born. Let me see. Let me see where we at. Chapter 17. Yeah, Ishmael's born, and yeah, Ishmael's born in the previous chapter, and um, okay, are you guys able to hear me? I think I lost connection there for a second. If you can hear me, give me a one in the chat. Apologize, I was having some connection issues there. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was having some connection issues, so sorry about that. But yeah, so getting back to it. So this is where the covenant of circumcision comes. Okay, so inevitably it says, he established a covenant between him and thy seed for generation to generations for an ever. Now here's the piece right here. It says thy generations for an everlasting covenant to be under Yahuwah and in thee. So that's another piece I want you to pay attention to. It's an everlasting covenant. So it's forever. So that's one piece that I really want you to pay attention to. Everlasting. So let's uh let's let's get into. I'm gonna. We're never gonna get through this if I go verse by verse, which hopefully, again, this hopefully you are reading so that that we aren't missing on anything. But this covenant, when I also want to make reference of is not only did the circumcision, because the circumcision first of all was a was their sign of the covenant. But here's where his name was also changed as well. Verse 5, chapter 17, verse 5. Neither shall your name be any more called Abram, but Thy name shall be called Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. So, one thing that you notice is not only is he given this covenant, he's given he's his name has changed. The significance of this, and you'll see it as you go along, that when Yahuwah makes that covenant, oftentimes you see a name change. When Yahuwah sends someone, he changes their name. You see that here with Abraham. You see that later on with Yaakov or Jacob, and you'll see it in the New Testament with Paul, or formerly Saul. And so that's one piece that I want you to take note of here as well. Is he was given the covenant, he was sent out, and his name was changed from Abram to Abraham. So, so that's one piece that I wanted to be noted. So now, chapter 18, real quick, that I wanted to touch on. A couple verses. Verse 10. Um, so, verse 10. Some messengers of the Most High, inevitably angels of the Most High, came to Abraham, and he's talking to them. And so, verse 10, he says, um, and he said, I will return to unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I'm waxed old, shall I have pleasure, or shall I have pleasure? Uh, my Elohim, or my Elohim being old also." Actually, excuse me, my Adonai being old also. Uh, that is a actually, and that's something I want to take note of as well. Okay, so um, this word for Lord, and this is actually um, important for context as well. Oops, you know what? I clicked the wrong thing. For context as well, because Lord does not always mean the same thing every time you see it. Okay, sometimes the word for Lord is Elohim, other times the word for Lord is Adonai, which are two different things. So in this case, you'll see, or Adon is what it says. So this word Adon simply means master. Okay, and so, um, and that's what she's referring to. And you see in this verse who she's referring to when she's saying, you see this word my Lord being old also. She's not talking about the Most High being old. Okay, when she's saying, in this case, this word that is translated in English as Lord actually just means master, and actually she's talking about her husband Abraham. Okay, so going rereading it. So therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "As I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure? My master, or my Adon being old also." So she's referring to her husband. So, and that's what she's saying. And that's a big piece, and a big piece of context, and one reason why a concordance or a Bible dictionary is important, is to understand the full context of what is actually being said. So when you hear, or when you see, in the King James version or most other versions translations for Lord, there are a lot of different meanings, because you'll see um, different words being used, or to be honest, the Lord, or God, or Lord or different things, it can. There are a lot of different meanings, and you have to look at the context, and if you have the abilities, look at some of those additional Bible tools that you have about you as well. So so that's one piece that I did want to touch on as well. So but yeah, so then the angel came. He's like, "Is anything too hard for Yahuwah?" And again, going back to what this word is. So you see Lord again. This is, you'll see that this Lord is a different word now. Uh, H3068, meaning Yahuwah. Okay, and so this is actually the Hebrew inscription for it. Okay, so and so that's what is actually being said. The proper name for Yahuwah. So and you'll see Yahweh as well. You'll see Jehovah. I'm not going to get the fullness into that, but when I'm saying it, you'll hear me say Yahuwah as his name. So, but that's what the and so that's why you'll see that. So there it is. There goes. You see the Lord. This is actually referring to the Most High. So different Lord here than Lord being right here. So two different words that are actually being used. So that's one piece of context. And actually, as you read and as you study, especially to start to take note of. And one other piece to understand is the fact that, again, as I just showed you, his name was written. I'm going to repeat that. His name was written. When you see it translated as the Lord, the writers actually wrote out his name. After the fact, there was a doctrine that has been adopted, and future translations took hold of it. Was that you're not supposed to say his name, and as we read further in the Bible, you'll see that that is 100% not true, because there are scriptures such as in Psalms, I think it's 68:4, or it might be 48:6. I always get that transposed in my head, but I think it's 68:4. It literally tells you to praise the Most High by his name, and it says his name is Yah. And that's literally the only place that you'll see in most translations of the Bible where his name is actually written out. It says his name is Yah. So, but that's just a piece that I did want to show you. See Lord there, you see Lord there, but those are two separate words. Okay. Um, but she left. The angel called her out on it, and then she denied it. And so and basically it's like, hey, there's nothing too great for Yahuwah in this case. Um, and he said, at the time appointed, I will return to thee according to the time of life, and Sarah will have a son. Now, notice it says the men rose up thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. Now, there's a reason they were going to Sodom, and you see in verse 20 it says, um, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. So these men are heading to Sodom for a reason, because they about to wreck shop. And remember, who is living in Sodom? Lot. And so basically, Abram tried to intercede on the behalf of Sodom. And you'll see him here, the rest of this chapter, him going back and forth with the angel. He's like, hey, hey, if there are 50 righteous in the city, will you save them? Hey, he said, it's like, hey, if there's 50 righteous, I'll let them be. Hey, if there's 40 righteous, will you let them be? And he brings it all the way down. If there's 10 righteous, and the Most High said is like, there's 10 righteous, I'll spare them. Well, next chapter he goes into Sodom, and um and Lot takes them into, and they go into the house of Lot. Lot actually treats him very well, and but um, the men of the city, and here's what ends up happening: they pass by his house and starts banging on his door. It's like, basically saying, "Where are these men that went in your house? We want you to bring them out so that we may know them." Now, that word "know," well, let's look at it. So going back to these tools, let's see what it says. So you know that I'm not making this up. Says that we may know them. It's oops, sorry, I hit the wrong one. H3045. Uh, that is actually not the correct translation, and I don't. Okay, yeah, that's not actually the correct. So there are some errors on this site, and we've seen going forward. But inevitably, what these men are saying in this no, in this word for no, is um, he's not saying that they want to have knowledge of them. Inevitably, what he is saying, they want to um, sleep with the men that Lot brought into his house, and Lot tries to tell him, he's like, hey y'all, come on, hey, give it a break, and he even offers to give his daughters. Um, he offers to give his daughters. He's like, hey, don't do this sin. Well, after these men went back down, what you'll see is the angels of the Most High. Basically, he's like, hey, um, where is it? Oh yeah, verse 9. He says, and they said, stand back, and they say it again. Yes, exactly. These were angels. Yes, they were taking the forms of man, but um, yes, correct. They were angels disguised as men. That's correct. And so, yeah, and that's the thing is yeah, these were angels, and so they and here's what he said. He said, "Stand back," and they said again, "This one fellow came into sojourn, and he needs to be a judge now. Now will excuse me, and he will needs to be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them." And he pressed sore upon the man. Even Lot came near to break the door. But oh wait, no, sorry, this is beforehand. Here we go, verse 10. Sorry, but so this is them. They were trying to push past Lot, and the men pulled Lot in, and he said, and shut the door. He's like, hey, they're like, okay, hey Lot, we got this. He says in verse 11, he says, and they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great. That's another big piece that literally just reading this again, I just thought about it. So there were a lot of different men, small and great, um, that were there. So this is throughout the ages. Sodom was just a trip, and so he says, so that they weary themselves to find the door, and the men said unto Lot, hast thou in any excuse me, hast thou here any besides son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. And he's like, hey, we about to destroy this place. Take whoever you love, take them with you. And so what he did, and here's a big piece. He took his sons, or he actually went out to his sons-in-laws who had married his daughters. He's like, hey, get on up. Yah's about to destroy this place. And here's their response. He seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-laws. So he tried to save his sons-in-laws, and they're like, no, we good. Yeah, you crazy. and they chose to stay back. But so inevitably, he took his wife and his daughters and fled the city. And they were given a command not to turn. It's like, get out of here. Don't even look back at this place. And so, um, and here's what happened. Verse 24: the Most High rained down, or rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire. And despite the Most High's command, or the angel's command, his wife looked back from him, and she became a pillar of salt. And that is a big piece right there. I mean, any mother can understand why she turned back. Or at least two of her daughters were still in the city. So those that were married to these men were left back. She turned back, but the command of the Most High is that he specifically said, don't turn back. Because she turned back, what happens with Abimelech, it's actually similar to what actually happened in Egypt, but he did fairly similar to what he did in Egypt, as to when he went into Canaan with Abimelech. He told Abimelech revealed in a dream who Abraham was. And so, yeah, when he woke up from his dream, Abraham had specifically said, Abimelech went under Abraham and said the same thing. It's like, why'd you do this to me? It's like, why'd you say that she was your sister? It's like, you really could have brought some serious stuff to us, especially if I would have slept with her. And um, here's a couple of pieces that I did catch out of this chapter. Chapter 20 was verse 7. After, the Most High basically um, came to him in a dream, basically told Abram to pray for him. And then here's what it says. He says, restore this man and his wife, for he is a prophet. That's a piece that I just noticed this time. He is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou shalt restore her not, know that thou shalt surely die, and thou and all that are thine. So you and all that's yours, y'all all gonna die. And so he told Abram to pray for him, similarly to what he actually told Job to do to his friends. So those that are in the will of the Most High and those that are chosen by the Most High, he tells them to pray for him. And one thing that was a big thing with them back then, he told Abram to pray for Abimelech. And so that's how Abimelech was actually given that. And actually, Abimelech also gave to them, similarly to Egypt, gave to them even more riches. Also, I think he gave them silver and gold as well. So, or 1,000 pieces of silver. Here's what he said. Yeah, verse 16, 1,000 pieces of silver. And so, um, Kelly, I think that's referring to the next chapter. This is a decision that we must. This is a decision that we must make now in this day, Who is your allegiance to? Yah, or your family and friends. Yeah, that's sadly but surely sometimes a decision that has to be made, especially you see it biblically and in your present life. That's some things that I've had to do as well. But yes, that's 100%. So, um, chapter 21, you see Isaac born. Um, as the messenger said, as the angels of the Most High had said, and in his old age, at this point, Abram, when Isaac was born, Abram was 100 years old, and as I said, so at this point, Ishmael would have been, I believe, 16. So when Isaac would have been born, so Ishmael was 16, Isaac would have been, or when Isaac was born. Now that um, so at this point again that now that they had kids, now that the strife again turned to Hagar, and what ended up happening this time is Hagar was cast out. So the previous time Hagar ran because Sarah was treating her really harshly. This time Sarah just told her to take or just cast her out. And in that, again, angel of the Most High came and saw favor upon Hagar, and blessed her seed, and said that he will make your seed a nation. And so, and that's where it is. And then also, you'll see a covenant that is also made with Abimelech. So Abimelech was a good dude, and you actually see that. How he was dealt with was actually different than the Egyptian king, forgot his name. So another piece. So um so now we are here with Isaac, and another well-known chapter that is talked about within the Bible, which is Genesis chapter 22. And this is where the Most High commanded Abram to sacrifice his son. So a handful of pieces that are a couple pieces that I'm going to touch on here. He sacrificed his son, or he was commanded to sacrifice his son as a burnt offering. But one piece that a couple pieces that I want to talk on. It says verse 12, 22, verse 12. And he said, lay not, oh, sorry, no, I went too quickly, or I went too far. Okay, verse 10, starting verse 10, he says, and he stretched forth his hand, took the knife to slay his son. The angel of Yahuwah called upon him out of heaven and said, Abram, Abram, and he said, here I am, or here am I. He said, lay not thine hand upon thy son, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest Yah, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine beloved son. And the Hebrew word is Yaqid, which actually means beloved. Um, so it's translated as thine only, but it's actually beloved. Um, and so you has not withheld thy beloved son from me. And um, and he looked, and behold, was caught with him, and it was a thicket of his horns, or in a thicket by his horns. Abraham looked at the ram, up to uh, offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. So one piece that I want you to see here, it says, like 22, it says, "Thou fearest Yah, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine beloved son, from me." That's a big piece because that's also prophetic. Um, Abram was willing to give his son. Abram was willing to give his son. Because of that, the Most High stepped in. He's like, it is not for you to give your son. Your beloved son, it's me that's going to give my son, my beloved son. This is prophetic as to what will happen in the future. and and as you see in verse 13. So until it's time for me to bring my son, I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to give you this ram. This is going to be a substitute until it's my turn, until it's time for me to handle mine. So he called this place uh, further down, verse 14. He called this place, the name of that place, uh, Yahuwah Jireh or Yahuwah Jireh. Um, and as it is said, sorry, um, as it is said to this day, the mount of Yahuwah it shall be seen. So yeah, that's a few pieces that I wanted to really cover on that right there, especially that prophetic piece right there. That's very important as it'll you'll see that relevance, especially as we get into the New Testament. Um, and not long after that, chapter 23, Sarah died, and she's buried in chapter 23. Yeah, Sarah died. Abraham um, basically does not take no for an answer when the people were actually literally going to give him the land for free, and he's like, "No, I actually want to pay you for it." So again, remember, Abram is rich. He's literally almost treated as royalty at this point. And folks is like, "Hey, we know who you are." It's like, "Hey, just take the land." He's like, "No." He's like, "No, I want to pay you full price for it." So that's what happened in 23. So now we get into now bride for Isaac. So so here's the thing. He was living in Canaan. Um, Abimelech was a good dude, but the people of Canaan, not as much. And so he actually specifically, he was very intent. Abraham, he's like, I don't want you to take a wife from these people in Canaan. I want you to take a wife from my people. So he actually sent him to, or actually he sent his servant to go find a wife for Isaac, and actually gave specific instructions as to how to find her. In verse uh, 14, yeah, verse 14 it says, it shall come to pass, that the damsel whom I shall say, let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink, and she shall drink, and I will give thy camels drink. Let the same be that she that thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac, and thereby shall I know that thou hast showed kindness unto my master. Sorry, that this is him actually talking to Rebecca, but that is actually the oath that he gave to Isaac before he actually left um, to this land. And so, and that's literally how Rebecca was chosen, because he said, when you see this, you'll know that this is the woman for my son. And this is what happened is he went, and sure enough, that person was Rebecca. And um, now one name that I want you to also see here is Rachel's brother. Oh, where's that? Sorry, give me a second here. Oh, here we go. Verse 50. Sorry, I had some notes here on my side. Verse 50. Then Laban and Bethuel answered, and the thing proceedeth from Yahuwah. We cannot speak unto you bad or good. So I wanted you to see that name Laban here. So Rachel's brother Laban um, is here at this point as well, and this is it was you know, Laban was Rachel's brother, Bethuel her father, and so um, and so that's who was given unto um, who gave her unto the servant and eventually unto um, Isaac. So yes. So but yeah. So that's who kind of gave you okay. So I want you to see Laban as he'll come up later on in the chapter, and especially when it comes down to Yaakov or Jacob. So that being said, you start to see further along as we get into um, at this point, chapter 25. Uh, Abram died, chapter 25, but you also start to see he lived 137 years of age. So you start to see that the years are starting to go down actually onto the life of man. So Genesis, you see 900 plus years old. At this point, the years of man were numbered, and so at this point, you're at verse 17, and oh, sorry, this is Abram. So that was Ishmael, but Abram. Oh, by the way, Abram also had another wife as well, Keturah, and children with her. So that's another piece right there. And Abram's life, verse 7, sorry, 103 score and 15 years. So a score is 20 years. So 103 score, which is 60 years, plus another 15. So he lived 175 years. And Ishmael, further down, you see he lived 137 years. And so it touches on Ishmael, but now you start to see we start getting into um, the life of Yaakov or Jacob. Now this talks about his birth. Um, Rachel was, or excuse me, Rebecca had twins. One's name was Esau. One was Jacob. When um, Esau was born, and um, at his foot was Jacob's hand. So as they pulled Esau out, Jacob was literally clenching to his foot. And so here we go, or Esau's heel. And so um, and when Isaac would have been 60 at this point. And so um, verse 30 is another big piece. Verse 30, you see Esau said to Jacob, "Feed me, I pray thee, some with that same red pottage, for I am faint." This is where his name was actually. This is where, at this point, was his name called Edom. Okay, so at one of the things I'd always wondered is when did you see Esau's name change to Edom? And here's where it is right here. And now Jacob, being crafty, is like, "You hungry? Sell me that birthright of yours." Now the birthright is one of the most prized possessions, and it should have been. Um, and Jacob basically said, "It's like, hey, swear to me at this day." It's like, "Hey, swear to me. If I give you this food, then you sell me your birthright." Sure enough, Esau is like, "Okay, you can have it." So Esau sold his birthright, and as you see in verse 34, it says, "Thus Esau despised his birthright." So um, you see again in this verse right here, the promise is again confirmed. Um, one of the things here though, he settles in Gerar, which inevitably was the land of the Philistines and also Abimelech's land. But Abimelech's land was the land of the Philistines. And so that is one big piece right there. And so um, um, Verse 11, one thing you see with Isaac, just like his dad, is, excuse me, sorry. Verse 7, you see that he does something similar to what his dad does. Isaac goes to Abimelech and inevitably tells Abimelech um, that Rebecca is his sister, because Rebecca, like Sarah, she was fine, aka fair, to look upon. And so, but this time, Abimelech was a little bit more wise on this one right here. He saw Isaac was sporting with his wife. What does that word sporting mean? Look out the window. Isaac was sporting with his wife. Um, they were, and again, Blue Letter Bible. I use this for you guys. It's not. It's cool, but I wouldn't say the best of Bible dictionaries, concordances. But yes, plain. But inevitably, he's real cool with her. He's flirting with her, all that kind of stuff. And Abimelech sees that. He's like, hey, just like he said with Abram. It's like, hey, why are you gonna put me in this position? Well, similarly, he he also similarly what he did with Isaac, just like his dad. Um, he also blessed Isaac. Well, eventually, what ended up happening is Isaac in that land kept multiplying, kept getting um, larger and growing and prospering, and eventually got to the point is like Abimelech basically saying it's like, hey Isaac, love you man, but you got to go. You getting kind of too big for this area. And so, but in land, there were a lot of quarrels. This kind of began a lot of the quarrels began amongst Abraham's seed and the Philistines. And so basically, they are fighting over water. So they're fighting over water a lot, that you're starting to see in these chapters. But then you start getting into verse 27. Now 27, you get into now where you see the divide between now Isaac's son. So obviously we said there's Jacob and Esau. Well, Jacob, at this point, Isaac is getting old. He's almost blind, or he's pretty much blind. His eyes were bad, and so, um, but in that chapter when he was born, the Most High had already given the promise, or had already told um, Isaac and Rebecca that, or had told Rebecca that the younger son was actually going to serve the older son. And this is where you actually see this. So basically, what ends up happening in chapter 27 is Jacob's deception. So basically, um, Isaac in chapter 27 tells Esau to go out and get him a bite to eat, and basically say, when you come back, I'm gonna bless you. Well, Mama hears this, and um, Mama hears this, and so basically, Rebecca told um, Rebecca told Jacob, he's like, hey, what you gonna do? What I need you to do? I know your brother's hairy. I know you smooth. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have you um, uh, put on some goat skin or some goat hair and some stuff like that, so that you feel like your brother. We're gonna have you put that on your arm so daddy don't get you. And actually, Jacob even said it's like, hey, because she's trying to help him get the blessing of his father. But in this, Jacob even says, he's like, hey, I don't want to do this, because I do this, instead of blessing me, he curses me. And she said, hey, let the curse be on me. And um, so he does it. So and actually, she actually cooks. She said, go get that goat, and I'm gonna cook your daddy's dish that he's asking for a son. And so He did what she said, and Daddy starts asking. He's like, um, who art thou? He's like, who are you? He's like, I'm your son. He's like, I'm your son Esau. And of course, Daddy knows the son's voice, but he's like, like, come on over here. And he feels his arms. He's like, okay, it's hairy like your brother, or excuse me, it's hairy like Esau. He's like, your arm is hairy like Esau, but I don't, okay, but okay, I believe you. So okay, so he did, and what ends up happening is he ends up blessing Yaakov or Jacob, and um, he says, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are of Esau. But he discerned not because his hands were hairy like his brother's Esau. So he blessed him. And inevitably comes the blessing of Abraham that had been passed to Yitzchak or Isaac, and now it has been passed to Jacob. Jacob leaves, Esau comes in, expecting the blessing, and at this point, um, Esau is ticked, as you would expect. Esau's ticked when he realizes what happened. Um, Abram blesses him in one way. He's like, hey, you're going to be a great nation, but you're going to serve your brother. But Esau's ticked and basically says, I'm going to kill this dude. He's like, I'm going to kill him. And what ends up happening is Rachel hears that. He's like, you need to get out of here. And basically, she sent him unto her brother's house. Now, um, he gets there, and guess who he meets? Like I said earlier, remember that name, Laban, thy mother's brother. So he sent her. So he was sent to Laban, and um, he gets there, and he goes out there. Oh, actually, he goes out there, um, and on his way, he gets tired. He's literally sleeping on a rock. And on the rock, while he's falling asleep, he actually has a dream, and inevitably the Most High in his dream confirms the same blessing that he multiple times confirmed to Abraham, then down through Isaac, and now through Jacob confirms the same blessing. He says, "Thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed." So now you have this covenant and this promise that is made to Abraham. It is then confirmed with Isaac. Now or with Isaac or Yitzchak, and now it's confirmed with Yaakov or Jacob. And so uh, continued confirmation with that covenant. And so yeah, that's what happens here. It is that, and he actually names that place. Is this one Beersheba, I believe, 28. Yeah. Bethel, sorry. Yeah, so he called that place Bethel. So Bethel or Bethel. So so verse 19. Yes, and he called the name of that place Bethel. And previously the name of the city was called Luz, but he called it Bethel for that reason. Um, but now here's something else you see here, something new. Um, out of his grace from the Most High, here's a commitment that Yaakov or Jacob gave unto the Most High. And he says, this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Yah's house, and of all that and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. So for everything you give me, I will give you a tenth of it. So this is the first at the first point where you will see the 10% of everything that was given unto him. The first time you actually see this in the Bible, and that's where this is where it starts. So this is all of my possessions that you've given me, Most High. I will give you a 10. So this is where you first see that. So that being said, so now he uh, gets to the land and meets Rachel. This woman is beautiful or fair, and um, that being said, he loved her so much, and basically Laban, he's like, you know what? Oh well, actually, he actually started working for Laban beforehand, but now Laban sees this opportunity because he's seeing how he's prospering. He's like, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. Well, first of all, he said, Laban said to him, he's like, okay, he's like, I'm not gonna just let you work for free. He's like, what do you want? And he's like, you know what? I want your daughter. I want Rachel. This is what I want for my work. And he's like, how about this? You work for me. You'll see the word a week. What that week is a week of years or a Sabbath of years. So I've said before that Sabbath literally only means um, the is literally means the number seven. And so when he says the 7 years, that's what he's actually saying when he says a week. So let me see. Jacob Simpson's sons ran to meet him. Um, yeah, here's what he says. He says, "What shall thy wages be?" He had two daughters. One's name was Leah. The other one's Rachel. He said, and Leah was tender-eyed. She wasn't as beautiful as Rachel. Let's just say that. And so Jacob loved Rachel. He's like, that's what I want. I want your daughter. And so um, Jacob worked for 7 years. So I want to see if this actually shows that in the translation. So that's very interesting. I want to see that. So Sheba, similar to Shabbat. That's actually what that. I want you to see that right there. That word Sheba or Shabbat or Sabbath, same base word. So the number seven. So that's one thing I actually did want you to see right there. So that number seven, that's where that is. So he works for Sheba years or Shabbat, 7 years. That's what he's saying. So and then what he's saying is like yeah, it was 7 years, but it only felt like a few days because let's just say he was motivated. Now Laban, that dude was a trickery, or that dude was he's very cunning. Um, so it's time to marry Rachel. But instead, what he did is he gave him to he gave him Leah, and it must have been dark because he didn't realize until the morning that it was not Rachel. And his excuse was that, hey, um, it's not normal for us to give the younger daughter before the first. So here's what you can do: you can work another 7 years for me, and you work another 7 years. Um, you can have Rachel. So he inevitably conned Yaakov or Jacob into another 7 years, and again he did that and was given to Rachel. Now here's how the Most High even blessed Leah in this, because again, um, in all of this, um, he still loved Rachel, and Leah was not loved. The Most High saw her sorrow, and in that blessed her womb. And Yaakov conceived four sons with Leah, and in each one, Leah was like, "Hey, maybe this one he's gonna love me," and none of which ever happened, but the Most High still blessed him in it, or blessed her. through that. And so his first four sons, Reuben, Reuben, Shimon or Simeon, Levi, and Yehuda, were all blessed through Leah. So, but yeah, that's where we are. That's a looking at the time, a long summary of these chapters. But so we have gone through Abraham, we've gone through Isaac, and this is that transition from Abraham to Yaakov. And what you'll see and that's what's coming up next. I was very long-winded this week. I apologize. But that being said, I do thank you all who did watch this. I thankful for those who followed me. That being said, blessings upon all of you. And we are going to pray out. I didn't pray before we started, but we'll ask the Most High's blessing on this. But let's go to the Most High. Abba Yah, we thank you for this. We thank you for your word. We ask that you continue to bless. We ask that let not my words be the power unto this. Um, there is no power in my words, and so in this study, we ask that you speak to your people. We ask that your words go forth. We ask that um, you use me as really a magnet to you, just something to point towards you. So we ask that this study be, although I'm summarizing it, we ask that your word go forth and that you use this as a tool to bring your people closer to you. I thank you for who you are. I thank you for your love, and I give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. These and all the blessings I ask in the mighty name of your son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah. That being said, thank you for following me. If this has blessed you, please share it with others. Please check out my channel. I'm on YouTube, No Longer Vain. Also, other resources in regards to this are on that channel. So this is what at this point I my almost. So I try to do this weekly on Wednesdays. Excuse me. I plan to be on next week at 8 p.m. I got on late this week. I'm gonna do my best to be better at that. Technical difficulties as I have throughout this entire live, but that being said, I'll try to get a lot closer to 8 next week, and also try to be less shorter winded. But again, thank you for all who hopped on. Love you guys, and be blessed.